welcome to my presentation for VO3. My name is Alberto Peters, and I'm going to start by quickly just giving a small overview for my placement school. It is ROC van Flevoland, and it's MBO College Lelystad. We have diverse learners and needs, and that is because it's MBO, so there are different levels which are different vocations, so there is some differences between the classes. And the usual lesson, well, my placement coach usually does the first half of the lesson. The lesson blocks are usually 1.5 hours, so he does 45 minutes. He uses that to make the students work in their online environment, which is taalblokken. And then the rest of the lesson is basically all mine, and I can use the lesson to try out interactions or different lesson methods that I've devised, and I can try them out in the wild, so to speak. And well, I have some interactions then, obviously. And the 4 interaction forms that I had chosen to try out is the encouraging interaction among students. That's the one that I'm also going to recap, because that's the one that's going to be the main focus of this presentation. And there's a very good reason for that, because as I mentioned, they use taalblokken at my placements, and the problem there is it's very uninteractive. They just sit behind their laptops by themselves doing their work, and then when they're done, they're done. There's not much interaction, and especially there's not a lot of interaction then among the students themselves. And obviously to get some good language skills in speaking and listening and writing and such, there should be interaction. So that's why I have actually chosen this one to be for to try out multiple times. And the other interactions that I've tried are obviously a digital interaction, which I'm doing now as well. Interaction to keep order, and interaction through questioning techniques is also one that I tried. What's going to be about among students. So first here we have a small piece of work, a very small piece, of the first attempt. And the attempt was based around the whole idea of a what-if challenge. And here it is, what if language suddenly became fluid and dynamic. So I gave them a couple of different options that they could choose from, and they had to solve it by thinking in their group of 3 students to say like, well, how are you going to solve this abstract problem or issue? How are you going to tackle it? So the outcome was very, very limited, as is visible here, which was of course an issue because there could have been written a lot more. They could have written a small essay or a few examples, and it wasn't really what I envisioned beforehand. So I spoke about this with my placement coach. I took some feedback from my fellow students in class, and the issue was that I need to have a little bit more of a focus also on the lesson goals, so they know like what do they need to do and why, what is it for, what will it lead up to, and why is it fun to do or not do the task. And so then for my second attempt, I have a small part of the video where I gave them some better explanation on what to do and why it is important for them to do it. Let's put it that second. To figure out something like, how would you solve this issue? Like, what would you do? And of course, to help a little bit, I just got a paper you can just write for your brainstorming words. It's probably something that you come up with. And then I give you all about 10 minutes. And then after the 10 minutes, I will ask you, your group, if you found a solution, what the solution was, and
what is the solution?
What was it? So, as you can see here, I made more efforts to explain to them what they needed to do, and also put more of an emphasis on the fact that they actually had to have something at the end of the lesson that I could review and check for their understanding if they actually finished the task so I could figure out if they got a good solution, with also a small caveat on it, that they explained to me how they came to the solution, to make sure that they wrote down more than the first try. And of course this is in small groups, so this was one of the small groups that you saw here on the side. So the other groups are on the right side of this actual classroom. But what I learned by trying and doing this encouraging interaction with students is that even though they weren't very familiar with it at first, because before I arrived there they actually just didn't have any interaction unless you count them talking among themselves about TikTok videos, but they didn't really interact, and especially not during tasks or lessons. And they also told me that they are really fond of it, and that it's one of the reasons that English is now one of their most favorite subjects. So the encouraging interaction among them has been very fruitful in that sense. So for the encouraging interaction, it's partially, of course, there's cooperative learning, because it's learning together and not alone, which is always better because you can give feedback to each other, etc. And well, of course, there's more of a relation to the aims and outcomes. You can work together to a lesson goal. Like I give, for example, a lesson goal. You need to be like the ICANN stuff from Sefer. You have some examples of ICANN explain where I work, for instance. Something very basic like that, and then they could work on it together, and then it's better for them to reach the goals. And well, of course, one of the difficulties was, for at least for the start, that they were mostly not used to learning together. They were just doing everything independently. And for moving forward, well, I still need to work on getting my goals clear, also for them, as well as for myself, just to make it extra clear, because that makes it better aligned, the lessons. And also, sometimes the classes are a little bit rowdy, and it would be better to use some more keeping order there to make sure that they do what they need to do. Then I have some small things about interactions to question techniques. I tried that a little bit. What I learned there is that, especially for this part, was I wanted to try out like onderwijs-leergesprek, but the moment I started, I saw the reluctance in their eyes, and the way that they responded was basically like, okay, scrap the original plan, and I basically just kept it very surface level and just asked the same question a couple of times among different students and get their answer, and then go and move into a next question instead of having an actual onderwijs-leergesprek, because apparently they weren't ready for it at that time. So
you tried that once?
Yeah, and this is one small part of it, which you can see that I'm just asking the same question twice. Question to follow it up then is, do you think technology is very important in the classroom, or
Yes.
And why?
Because we use it every day.
Yes. Now the question was, do you think technology is important or not, and if so or not, explain why. And why?
Also, we use it every day. The teacher also uses it.
Yeah. So as you can hear there, I was just basically doing the same question a couple of times because that made it easier for them. And well, digital interaction is of course also one that I tried. I actually basically use it every single time. I always use something with a PowerPoint, or I use Lesson Up, or some other form of digital interaction to give like the lesson for them on the screen, and I put the goals up, and if they have and the task, so that they have a clear view of, oh, this is what I need to do, this is how to do it. Or I put some scaffolding there, like there's certain words they can use to perform a task or to finish something. And of course then there's a little bit of learning there because, of course, you need to keep your attention, but you also need to make sure that you use the interaction as a form to get learning done and not as much as for using it for fun, which is, of course, a little bit of a trap with digital interaction. It's always easy and fun to make a game out of things. And here was a small video of me using Lesson Up, but it's not very important, it's just Lesson Up. And then there's interaction during instruction. There's also some things that I've fiddled with because, well, for me it's usually hard to use it, so I tried to incorporate the Rose of Leary, and I have a very short video here that I'm not going to show, but what it just signifies is I'm there talking to that particular student who didn't want to do the task, together with the other two students here on the side, and I just walked towards him and then softly spoke to him like, well, I understand that you might not want to join in, but this and this and this and this, and I basically just went down to his level and explained that I understood why he did not want to join, but I also signified why it would be a good idea for him to still join, because it's one, better for him, and he would also help out his group mates by actually joining, so that they don't have one head less for the assignment. So then he was like, okay, yeah, you are right, I will do what you ask me. So, all in all, that was most of the presentation so far. So what I've learned and how we'll proceed from here is, well, my biggest barriers are my own insecurity and anxiety. I'm just someone who's just very insecure in general. So I'm very good at stumbling over my own words, or feeling so insecure that sometimes at the end of my sentence my voice level goes down to like a mumbling, or that you can almost not hear me anymore, which is very annoying, especially when you try to explain something to someone and they can't hear you, then it's not very helpful. So I try to be mindful of my voice. That is one of the concrete goals that I have. I want to learn how to set clear boundaries and also keep by the boundaries, because just setting them isn't enough, obviously. And I want to improve on using clear lesson goals, which in short also then applies to alignment in general. And well, and when I have to think about what type of teacher I want to become, and already am trying to move forward with, is I want to be someone who wants to encourage interaction. In general, just so that the students can learn the language, because I'm trying to teach them English, so I want them to use the language, I want them to ask questions, I want them to learn new words, I want them to write, I want them to speak, and I want to do that in a way that's more natural and which is also at least a tad bit fun for them, because they need to think that it's fun to learn English. And well, that is my presentation. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. So Alberto, first he compliments you, moet hij uit? Ja,
Ja.
nee, absoluut.
Niet heel duidelijk te nemen, toch?
Niet dat hele